Okay, hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking and Barry back again. Apologies that this video is getting out a little bit later in the day. I just got back from Techo earlier. It was a lot of fun this year, thanks to everybody that came out. I did my panel. I bought a new jacket. I did My Hero Academia trivia, and I won this all-for-one pop, so that's pretty cool. Let's see, I also got a new jacket. I played Anime Family Feud and lost, but it was a lot of fun. I bought a new jacket. Do you want to see the jacket? I mean, like, if you guys want to keep bugging me about, we want to see your new jacket, Tekking. I'm like, okay, guys, calm down. I'll put the jacket on if you're just so obsessed with it. Jeez. All right, yeah, I guess. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but, like, yeah, I did get this awesome new Letterman jacket. Okay, check this out. Yeah, right? Pretty cool. It says Pirate King. It's got the logo on the back. It has Grand Line Treasure Hunter right there. That's pretty awesome. See, I never played sports in high school, so I never got a Letterman jacket. So this is a big deal for me, okay? Anyway, what's going on in One Piece? Oh, what isn't going on in One Piece? Okay, so, it seems the general vibe after the chapter, the thing that most people are focusing on, is Sabo, okay? And that's to be understood considering it was a mystery for years and years, literally, on what happened to Sabo. Oda is very clever with this kind of stuff. Literally, we start off right before Wano with the Reverie arc. And we're like, it's not even really an arc. It was like 4 chapters. But he's like, okay, I'm going to start this off with Reverie. And there's going to be a boatload of mysteries and like what happened to this character and did this character escape and all that kind of jazz. And it's like, yeah, we're just not going to reveal that for like 150 chapters until after Wano is over. So have fun! So here we are, though, finally finding out some stuff about Sabo. This is the status of Sabo. Ooh, cool name, though. Okay, it always has to come down to alliteration. All right. So, a couple of just baseline things about Sabo. He's not dead, which is good, because, honestly, I don't think Oda really could have played that out too much anyway, because we already did that once. We already did the whole thing where it's like, oh no, Sabo is dead! Well, actually, for the longest time, we didn't even know Sabo existed. Then we found out about him during the flashback post Marineford, and it's like, oh no, Sabo existed, and he's dead, okay. And then boom, he shows back up at Dressrosa, and we're like, Sabo's not dead. And it's like, oh no, now you can't just keep doing that over and over again. It's kind of the same thing like with Big Mom's amnesia spells. Like, there's a set number of times you can utilize that as a trope before it just starts getting annoying. So I'm glad it wasn't like we assumed that it might have been the case, okay, but that was never stated by the characters, all right? The characters saw the newspaper and they were like, what? Sabo? This is dot, and then they trailed off. And so, people like me and other YouTubers were like, is Sabo dead? But it was never actually hinted at in the story. It was just, there was some news pertaining to Sabo. So he is still alive. And it's stated that he was the one that actually killed Cobra. And I am still on record. I am 100% confident that Cobra is dead. I know this is One Piece and all, and like characters don't die very often, and all that jazz. But it's like the idea is you have to understand that this is the final saga, and we just had Izo and Ashura Doji die during Wano. Now, granted, those characters were not like super important, but they were more important than Cobra. Izo definitely had more relevance to the story than Cobra ever did. Ashura Doji, I don't know, he just showed up during Wano and then he died before the arc was over. But still, I think it's sort of Oda being like, yeah, you're going to see a lot more deaths coming down the pipeline now, considering it's the end of the story, or getting toward the end of the story. So, yeah, I think we still might get some flashbacks with Cobra, definitely setting up, like, how he died. In fact, that has to happen because I'm pretty damn sure that Sabo did not just decide to kill Cobra in like cold blood. He wasn't just like walking through the castle and like, there's Cobra, we have to kill him for some reason. He can, and then he just burns him for some reason. No. So there's either two ways to look at this. Either Sabo did kill him, but it was like in an indirect way, or he was caught in the crossfire, or I don't know, it might have been a situation where like, I don't know, the Gorosei or Eam or somebody like forced Sabo's hand of like, Sabo, if you, like, maybe they captured Morley or Karasu or somebody. It's like, if you want to see your comrades, survive this, Sabo, you must slay the king of Alabasta for us. And it's like, well, why would they make him do that? It's like, well, so they would have a story to tell the world, I guess. That's Sabo. Well, wait, no. That would actually backfire if that was the case, because it actually ended up becoming a story all over the world, and it actually resulted in the revolution, gaining a lot more speed. Unless you want to say that Eam and the Gorosei are playing 4D chess here, even more so than Kinemon did, and the idea is we want to kickstart the revolutionary army into high gear. We want it to look like the revolution is actually happening in the world, so then they can do their little, their cleansing, whatever that was, and so then they have a justification for it. That's actually interesting, because the Gorosei were talking about that at the Reverie, like, it might be time to dust off the old cleansing, or whatever that is. And I like to think that there were plenty of revolutions before. I mean, the world government has been the active, control of the world for 800-something years, right? So there had to have been other people way before Dragon and Sabo were even born, before then, that were like, let's try to rebel against the government. And some of them were probably crushed before they even got off the ground, but others probably, went a little bit, as maybe not as far as the Revolutionary Army right now, but got a decent amount of, like, sway and influence. And maybe that's when the world government decided to be like, this revolution is a threat, we got to do the purge now. It might be something like that. So it's like, if they could make the article in the paper and make it seem like Sabo killed Cobra, then that would have gotten all of the revolutionaries, like, excited, and all these nations would begin to rebel. And it was mentioned in the last chapter that 8 separate nations are now rebelling, and these were nations that were represented at the Reverie, okay? So when the kings were all returning, the kings and queens from various nations were returning home, they were literally met with, like, swaths of revolutions, and that's just 8 that we know of right now. There might be more in the future, okay? So what if that was all part of the Gorosei's plan? And actually, when you look at it from that angle, it kind of makes sense, because this is a pretty cool jacket, isn't it? I know you're just sitting there watching this video like, oh man, I can't even focus on what Tekking's saying right now. That jacket is just so cool. I know, but just try to pay attention here. That would actually make sense from the Gorosei's perspective, because they don't like Cobra. They don't like the Nefeltari family, because they did not stay at Marijois after the, world government was founded. They opted to stay in their homeland of Alabasta. So, sort of like the Gorosei are sitting around and they're like, okay, we need a way to get the revolution really riled up, so that it seems like we're justified in doing this cleansing. Like, we're not the bad people here. It's the revolutionaries that are getting excited and burning things down and attacking people, and the world government's going to come to the rescue, save the day, we do the cleansing, and then we're all reset back to the status quo. One of our members, though, one of the members of the world government of fairly high standing, has to die in order to make this happen. Now, they obviously cannot sacrifice. Somebody has to be the scapegoat here, okay? Now, they obviously can't sacrifice any of the actual Tenryubito, because they would never go for that. And they also don't want to get rid of any other kings and stuff, So they're like, well, I mean, some of them maybe they'd be okay with, but like, Cobra is the perfect, scapegoat for this. Because it's like, okay, if he dies, yes, we don't like him because he's not a Tenryubito, even though he should have been, but the people of the world will view him as a Tenryubito, or on the same level, because everybody knows the Nefeltari family was one of the families that started the world government. He's still included, their family is still included, even though they didn't stay in Marijois. So he's actually the perfect person. We can get rid of him, so he's not our problem anymore. Also, Cobra was asking a lot of questions, too. He was like, I want to speak with the Gorosei. He was asking questions they didn't want to answer, and they didn't even want to hear, okay? It's like, oh, this is perfect. We get rid of Cobra, Revolutionary Army gets all excited, they start attacking islands or whatever, we're justified, boom, 2 birds with 1 stone, and then everything's reset. Okay, so looking at it from that perspective, it's possible. Also, it's completely possible that they might have not even gotten Sabo involved. The world government might have just killed Cobra regardless, even without Sabo even being in the room. But just the fact that Sabo and Morley and Karasu and Lindbergh and everybody were there at the Reverie, because it was common knowledge that they attacked the city, and they blew up the symbol of the Celestial Dragons on top of that church or that spire. So it just makes it convenient. You know, they could have literally like, oh yes, Nefeltari Cobra, you wish to speak to the Gorosei. Sure, come on in. And then Cobra like wheels himself in there on his wheelchair. He's all by himself. He's maybe like the other members of his entourage, like Igaram. Igaram went with them, right? So I don't even know who's watching Alabasta right now. I don't know. It might be under Pell for all we know. Did Pell go? I don't know. Somebody had to stay behind. But, you know, maybe it's like Igaram is like, you know, sire, allow me to accompany you. And Cobra's like, no, Igaram, I know I may be sickly, but I will be the one to address the Gorosei. I have questions that I need answered, and only I can be present when it happens. And Igaram is like, okay, my king. And so he wheels himself into the Gorosei's room of authority. And then what if they just, like, kill him and then set him on fire? I know, rather dark, but, like, then they could blame Sabo for it. It's like, oh no, Sabo, the second in command, the chief of staff of the Revolutionary Army, just broke into the room of authority and burned Cobra alive, and then he left as fast as he came. Oh no, the travesty. And then that ends up in the paper, and it's like it could have been something like that, where Sabo wasn't even close to Cobra. They just lied about it. Oh, you know what else could have happened? It might have been like maybe Cobra and Vivi went in together, you know, into the room of authority, because, you know, it's like, okay, father and daughter, and it's like, okay, we're all royalty of Alabasta here, let's hear what's going on, right? And so maybe that's when the Gorosei killed Cobra, took Vivi, and then, you know, she's in the dungeons of Marijois right now, or she's maybe in the audience of Eam or something. That could be going on with her, but not really talking about Vivi. Now we're talking about Sabo. So that's the news story. And, you know, there's the whole discussions, like the whole idea of like Kuro Uma, who's the head of like the internal affairs of the Marines. He's trying to figure out like whether or not the assassination of Cobra and the disappearance of Vivi was like involved here, because he brings up in the chapter that, you know, Sabo is sort of like the keystone to all of this. Like, everybody is sort of like, Sabo's responsible for killing Cobra. He's also responsible for the kidnapping of Vivi. He's also responsible for the attempted murder of Charlos. He's also responsible for all these revolutions that are happening. Like, Sabo is the Flame Emperor now, okay? And the fact that Luffy is an actual emperor, you know, we see the chapter where there's that war-stricken nation that's rebelling. There's the giant banner of Sabo, and then there's the symbol of the world government with an arrow through it, and that dude is standing up with a megaphone and the bandana with revolution scrawled across it, and he's like, it's time for revolution! The Flame Emperor is here, ladies and gentlemen! So everybody is basically like, everything that happened at Reverie, Sabo is getting credit for it, whether it's good or bad, okay? And in the case that it would be bad for the world government would actually be good for the Revolutionary Army, okay? This is a major deal, all right? Now, it was also mentioned the battle between the Revolutionary Army and the admirals, okay? Interesting thing here is that I guess we don't know about Fujitora, but everybody else made it out alive. Pretty sure Fujitora is alive too. Actually, no, we do see him later. We just see him like with like bandages as he's like sailing away to deal with the warlord situation, okay? So Fujitora got a little banged up during the battle, but I guess Green Bull really didn't, because he looks fine right now. And it was mentioned that all of the Revolutionary Army commanders, all of them, plus Kuma, they got Kuma, and they escaped. Okay, so that's another thing that's wild, although not that crazy when you think about it, because, like, look at all the Revolutionary Army commanders. Like, we have Morley and her ability to, like, literally use the push-push fruit to just dive under the soil of the red line, so, you know, Morley could have escaped really easily. Not really difficult there. Karasu can turn into a murder of crows and fly away. That's like, he would have it the easiest to just escape. And then Lindbergh has a jetpack, and then Sabo is a Logia, right? Kuma, I'm not really sure how they got Kuma out of there, but I guess you could have just used Morley's ability for that. That would have been fine. Just, you know, Morley grabs Kuma, drags him underground, and then they escaped, okay? So there's the situation with that. So they all managed to get away. They clashed with the admirals. Kuro Uma brought up that, like, well, the admirals probably couldn't fight to their fullest extent because they were in the Celestial Dragon City. You know, at first I thought they were worried about, like, well, I guess, yeah, they were worried about killing other Tenryubito because they were all living there. So now that we know about Aramaki's Mori Mori no Mi, he can't just, like, summon a giant forest and, like, destroy all the houses and everything, because there's Tenryubito living in there if one of them died or something. And we see from, as we learn from Aramaki's philosophy on life, he actually views the Tenryubito very, very highly, okay? Kind of the exact opposite of Garp, because Garp never wanted to become an admiral because he knew knew he would be directly under the thumb of the Tenryubito if he did so, and Aramaki probably, like, jumped for it. He was just like, oh, yes, I would love to be a direct subordinate under the Celestial Dragons, you know? Like, if Sabo happened when Aramaki was an admiral, he would have probably been the one like, oh, man, Straw Hat Luffy punched St. Charlos in the face. Oh, send me to Sabo. I want to be the one to deal out justice. You know, that's Aramaki. He's very, he's very excitable for dealing out justice, just in a really messed up way, right? So, you know, they didn't want to, you know, kill the other Celestial Dragons there, so that would have definitely limited of what Fujitora could do. You know, maybe being at I thought about maybe being at a high altitude might have affected Aramaki's Devil Fruit a little bit, but it's like, from what we've seen at Wano, he can literally cause fresh soil and plant life to just erupt out of anywhere. So the idea is like, okay, he's a couple thousand, I mean, it's several thousand meters above sea level, but I'm pretty sure his ability would have worked just fine, because when you become an admiral at that point, like, you know how to use your ability. Like, you know, see Aokiji freezing the ocean, see Akainu using magma to, like, turn Punk Hazard into a hellscape or whatever. So yeah, pretty sure they would have been able to use their powers if they really wanted to, but because the Tenryubito were there, they just couldn't. Akainu was kind of like, you know, oh, don't make excuses for them, but, you know, they essentially failed in their, but they did essentially fail at their mission, so to speak, there, right? So where are they at right now? That's another big question. Like, where are they currently at? You might say they might be heading back to Kamabaka, which is where the current Revolutionary Army base is, but it seems like they're not doing that. Honestly, like, if they have Kuma, this would probably be the perfect time to introduce Vegapunk. Actually, this would be perfect. Oda, just do it now. There were plenty of other times in this story where introducing Vegapunk would have worked fine. There were moments at Punk Hazard, like during a flashback, I think it would have been okay for us to see him with Caesar and everything. But you know what? It's okay. Revolutionary Army, go find Vegapunk. I think Vegapunk is already like a secret agent working for the revolutionaries behind the scenes anyway, because he was the one that programmed Kuma to begin with, okay? So, you know, it might have been a situation where the Revolutionary Army were completely in the dark about Kuma's decision, because at some point, Kuma went from being, like, honestly a very cruel tyrant to being a member of the revolutionaries, to being a member of the world government again, to being a cyborg. So obviously there's something going on here, but the way that Sabo and the other commanders reacted to seeing Kuma at Marijois, they weren't in on it. They don't know what's going on with Kuma. So if anybody knows about it beyond Kuma, it would probably be Dragon. Dragon might not even know. I don't know. It might literally be a thing where maybe years and years ago, maybe Kuma approached Dragon and he was like, you know, Dragon, sir, I am going to go undercover in the world government, but I can tell you nothing more about what I'm going to do, or it would ruin the, you know, it would ruin the plan. And so Dragon's like, okay. And then so Kuma left. Or maybe he didn't even tell Dragon. Maybe one day Kuma just left, or maybe he pretended to be captured. You know, honestly, that would have probably been the best way to do it. Like, if Kuma was sitting around one day and he's like, I have this plan on taking down the Tenryubito, but in order to make it work, I cannot tell any of my friends, any of the Revolutionary Army commanders, Ivankov, Morley, Karasu, Lindbergh, Bello Betty. I can't even tell Dragon. I can't tell Sabo. So maybe one day, you know, Kuma was doing a Revolutionary Army thing, and he ended up getting captured by the Marines, and the revolutionaries just assumed that he did end up getting captured like normal, and then, but it was all part of Kuma's plan. And then he met Vegapunk, and he talked to Vegapunk, and Vegapunk was in on it. Maybe, yeah, he was the only person that was in on it, turned him into a cyborg, and now the revolutionaries are going to take him to Vegapunk and, like, maybe like, all right, old man, you're going to turn our friend back to normal. And then that's when we get to finally meet Vegapunk, and he's like, oh, you don't understand. I haven't decided on a voice for Vegapunk yet. I usually use Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty whenever I talk about him, so I'll try to do my best Rick impression here. Like, I don't have any beer, I have water, so I'll just have to make this work. It's just like, okay, so they show up, and they's like, you know, they hold a sword, or, you know, Sabo lights his hand on fire, and he holds it to Vegapunk, and he's like, all right, you're gonna undo whatever the hell you did to our friend. Vegapunk's just like, Ugh, oh my god, you guys are freaking morons. Okay, listen, a long time ago, he came to me and he told me to turn him into a cyborg, which was freaking dope, so I did it. And it's like, also there's like a sleeper function, so he just takes out like a remote and just beep, and then all of like Kuma's memories come back. It's like, there you go. I'm gonna go take a shit, and then there you go, like that. There's Vegapunk for you. There you are, perfect Rick Sanchez analogy. So, yeah, okay. So that might have been what happened. I think Vegapunk is going to be on the side of the world government regardless. You know, in realistic terms, I think he's going to be upset with what they're doing and the whole, like, you know, like, restrictions they place on the world and, like, all the slavery and whatnot. I think Vegapunk doesn't like that. He's a man of science, after all, and they're making him build, like, death robots with the pacifistas, and he's just like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm just going to pull the plug. I'm going to flip the switch on the pacifistas, and they're all going to work for the Revolutionary Army now. Like, maybe something like that. Who knows? But yeah, I think it would make sense if they're heading to Vegapunk. They might be heading back to the Revolutionaries, though, just to regroup. That might be possible. Maybe Dragon sent out a group, and they're like going to communicate through the Den Den Mushi of like, Sabo, where are you at? And it's like, it's okay, Dragon-san, we're alive. It's like, okay. And then they might meet somewhere, like a rendezvous, and then figure out what to do next, okay? But they all got out alive, so that's good. Let's see here. What else about the Reverie do we want to know about? What's up with Bonnie? I still want to learn about Bonnie. She's connected to Kuma in some way, probably is her son, because of her but her, like, aging devil fruit. So we still don't know a lot about Bonnie. She might be with the Revolutionaries. Maybe. That'll be cool. You know, I want to see what's obviously up with the Alabasta situation. Their ship hasn't left the Red Port, so we still don't know about that. But yeah, for Sabo, though, I think, considering what Oda's doing, and I even said this in the review, whereas, like, okay, Luffy is now a member of the Emperors, Sabo has more influence than even Dragon right now, where he's being viewed as a god amongst the people, like the common man fighting back, right? And so with that situation, I think Luffy and Sabo are going to be sort of thrust into, like, the main characters of this story. It's something that is not a problem with One Piece, and it probably will all merge together, but it's like you have the revolution with the Tenryubito and then Dragon's army on one side, and then you have Luffy's story, where Luffy is very far from Marijois right now. Luffy, you know, just is, like, traveling on the sea and, you know, wanting to find the One Piece with his crew and everything like that, and the Marines are hot on his heels and everything. It's like, how are these two things gonna, like, merge together into one story? Okay, I mean, I made a 3-part series at the beginning of this year talking about, like, are the Straw Hats going to go to Marijois? And I don't think they will now, but it's like, how are you going to combine these two things together? So I think for a while, at least, we're going to have Sabo's little story and then Luffy's story try to be balanced out a little bit. Luffy will probably have a little bit more screen time because he's obviously the main character, but I hope Oda will focus a little bit on Sabo, and then it will merge in a way at the climax of the story that makes sense. You know what I mean? That'll really fit, okay? Don't exactly know how Oda's going to do that, but I have faith in him that he will do that. Okay. Let's see. What else about Sabo in particular? Let's see here. Let's see. Well, you know, there's the whole thing that, like, since, okay, what kingdoms are rebelling right now, okay? Like, that's a thing. I think it's the Lulusia kingdom is one of them, King Seki, the one where Peachbeard attacked. That was definitely one of them. These are all very prominent kingdoms. It could be Bollywood. It could be the kingdom that's based off of England, the kingdom that's based off of France. Not really sure. But we saw a lot of these really prominent kingdoms there. It might even be some kingdoms that never even had maybe problems with revolution before, but because of just everything that happened, maybe their group was like a minority on that island, and now because of Sabo's actions, they just had a lot of support, you know, because there's a lot of people that are just upset with the way the world government runs things, specifically the way the Tenryubito run things, and they just want change. They want something different, okay? And so now everybody's standing up for this. So it has the Gorosei, a perfect opportunity, a perfect chance to use the cleansing, whatever that's going to entail, but it also really just brings everything on the final track of this story, okay? So anyway, I think that's the video for right now. There's still a lot to unpack from the last chapter. We have Shanks and doing what he's doing. We have that wine bottle. We have the sake bottle, which I'm thinking I'm going to have to dedicate an entire video to that sake bottle, guys. That's a really important sake battle. Sake battle. That's the final battle of One Piece. The One Piece is a bottle of sake, which that actually was a theory that was around for a while, still is. And now it's going to be a battle for the sake. I think that the translation I read was, like, wrong. It didn't say 617. It said 67. So it's like number 567. So people are looking at, like, chapter 67, page 5. Like, there's so many ways you can interpret it. But the wine bottle is relevant. And then I have to talk about Shanks in general, and then I have to talk about the Mori Mori no Mi, which something fun that somebody actually involving that fruit. And I already knew this, but like mori in Latin means death, you know? So like memento mori, for example. What's memento mori from? Is that from a series of unfortunate events? I think that's from a series of unfortunate events. Yeah, remember you will die. Yeah, there you go. It sounds like something that was in Lemony Snicket. So anyway, though, yeah, so there's, yeah, that fruit that's like death technically, but it's like a fruit that gives life. So there's some stuff interesting to talk about the forest fruit. But yeah, anyway, those are videos for this week. Look forward to them all. I know, guys, I know it's an awesome jacket, all right? You don't have to keep bringing it up. All right, let's just get into jellyfish facts. All right, let's just do jellyfish facts to end us out. Okay.
Welcome to Jellyfish Facts. Jellyfish Facts.
All right, so today, just like with a lot of other animal facts, it's time to talk about the smallest jellyfish and the largest, beefiest jellyfish, okay? So, as you can imagine, though, because jellyfish are, like, over 700 million years old, so evolutionary, they're very simplistic, you know, they don't really have a lot of complicated things going on for them compared to, like, mammals, like humans and stuff. So, for that reason, there are some jellyfish that are literally so small you can't even see them with the naked eye. There's sort of an assumption just because of just the sheer metric volume of water in the ocean and so much of it that we have not explored just because the depths get so like intense, dark, and with the pressure you can't really explore like every little aspect of the ocean. Because of that, it's estimated there could be literally thousands and thousands of species of jellyfish that are super tiny that live in the bottom of the ocean in some crevice somewhere. Is it crevice or crevasse? Not sure. I like saying crevasse. That sounds way cooler. Some crevasse at the bottom of the ocean, there could be a jellyfish species that we know nothing about. We'll probably never find out about all of them. But as for the ones that we know about so far, there's Starocladia and Eutheria. And I'm probably butchering both of those names, but this is an example of that. And literally, they can be as small as 0.5 millimeters in diameter. Okay, so literally, it's like 0.02 inches. All right, so small that you literally can't even really see it with the naked eye. You need like a microscope in order to see the specimen. But this thing right here is technically a hydrozone. It is a jellyfish is what you're looking at right there. Just a really tiny one. Okay, and on the opposite end of that, we have the beefiest jellyfish, which is the Nomura's jellyfish, named after the person that discovered it, Nomura. And then boom! Nomura's jellyfish can grow to about the same size as a human being, given this funny little piece of clip art with a jellyfish next to a human being. Hi there. And this is crazy. 2 meters in length, and guess how heavy these things can be. Now, you think about this for a second. Jellyfish, which is like 98% water, which you think they would be light, but then I want you to imagine a water balloon that is also like mainly water that's 2 meters in length. Yeah, that would weigh a lot, right? That was about the size of a human, okay? This jellyfish, Nomura's jellyfish, can be as heavy as 440 pounds, over 200 kilos. I was going to say kilometers for a second. 200 kilometers of weight. Can you imagine? Yeah, 200 kilograms, okay? So that is crazy to think that there's like sumo wrestlers out there that weigh less than a jellyfish, but it's just a factual thing. They're also edible. It's kind of like with like the puffer fish. You got to remove like the toxic organs, and if you eat them wrong, you could die. But Nomura's jellyfish is technically edible. There's even a company in Japan that makes it into ice cream. Jellyfish flavored ice cream. It exists if you'd like to try some. Although it is stated that even while they are edible, their taste isn't really anything to write home about. They're really not that great, but you can eat them when prepared properly. So there you go. It's just crazy to think because this Nomura's jellyfish can literally like start off its lifespan the size of a grain of rice and then grow to the size of like 2 meters, 400 pounds. You know what I mean? Just ridiculous. I mean, jellyfish are nuts. We already know this. All right, thanks for watching the video, everybody. Tekking and Tekking's sweet jacket signing out. Later, everyone. I'm just gonna walk away with my jacket now. Yeah.